Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farooq Pitafi. Viewers, today we are going to talk about Prime Minister Pakistan's visit to the US, especially the visit that includes the meeting between Pakistan's Prime Minister and the US President Donald Trump. As you can see, the scenes are before you. As we speak at this moment, the Prime Minister of Pakistan is about to arrive at the White House, and all the preparations are there. But today, what we are going to actually ask is what to expect from this meeting. Once it starts, it is going to take something like 3 hours, where there will be interaction on various levels. First, one-on-one meeting, and then delegation level meeting will also take place. Interestingly, while this was scheduled, interesting things started happening. For example, one very interesting thing is that while the Prime Minister was expected there and he was to meet the President, and mind you, it is a meeting that is now taking place. Donald Trump became President of the US 3 years ago, and since then, this is the first apex level contact between the two countries. But just before this meeting, we saw the meeting that was arranged at the White House between the victims or survivors of persecution and President Donald Trump. And while there was representation from Pakistan or other countries, there wasn't that much representation from India. Now, as you can see right now, the Prime Minister of Pakistan has arrived at the White House, and President Donald Trump is receiving him. Before you right now, in front of you, the Prime Minister of Pakistan has just arrived. The Foreign Minister of Pakistan is standing next to him. You just saw Donald Trump waving at media, and they have just gone inside. Here we are going to see a meeting of the leadership of the two countries, and then we are going to see a delegation level meeting as well. Once that is over, we are expecting an interaction with the media as well, whether that takes place or not. But the visuals are in front of you. You can look at the reception. The Prime Minister of Pakistan just arrived, and they shook hands. The Prime Minister of Pakistan and the President of the US, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan is standing next to them, and they have just gone inside the White House for the meeting. And now you can see this tweet as well. This afternoon, President real Donald Trump welcomes Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, of PTI, to the White House. You can see this tweet that just came out from the Twitter handle of White House. Just to recap, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, has arrived at the White House. He was received by the President of the US, and then they have gone inside. So I was talking about the interesting things that happened before this meeting. The meeting of survivors of persecution recently took place. There you saw representation from various countries, victims from various countries, and you didn't see any representation from India, where even today a video has surfaced where a toddler was being beaten by a lynch mob. But regardless, today we are going to talk about all these matters and more, just to understand what is going on, how to actually, what to expect from this visit, this meeting. We are joined by a very eminent panel. We are joined by Syed Fakhr Imam Saab, Senior Leader and MNA of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Ambassador Asif Durrani, a career diplomat, writes as well in various papers. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Raza Rumi, a senior analyst, a friend of mine as well. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Fakhr Imam Saab, I have to start with you, and I have to ask you what to expect from this meeting.
I think it's a momentous meeting because both the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the Honorable Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Imran Khan, in their own style, are charismatic leaders to their own voters. And in their different paths to their careers, I think it will be interesting to see how two charismatic leaders engage with each other. Each will present their own perspective, which is always respective national interests. And from Pakistan's point of view, our main, I think, perspective will be how we have engaged with the international finance institutions, because our economy is our issue number one right now from Pakistan's perspective, and our interaction that has taken place and the agreement that we have signed with the International Monetary Fund, FATF, which is continuing till October, we are on the grey list, and subsequently the international financial architecture of Bretton Woods would be there. In addition to that, I think Pakistan, of course, we talk of our issues. Kashmir for us is a very potent issue.
Concern, right.
And it may or may not be for the others, but for us it's still the core issue. And then pertaining to our economy, trade with the United States, which is close to $7 billion in our favor, slightly, but we need to emphasize that more. And then, of course, things like our agroeconomy, our education, science and technology, we don't talk about it.
Right.
But other countries, when they have interacted with the United States, have, especially China, when it had its first meeting of Deng Xiaoping in '78 with his counterparts in the United States, one thing they asked was to place 10,000 Chinese students in the United States, and they agreed at once. Today, there are documented 360,000 Chinese students studying in North America and universities, the United States of America.
Right. So there are many points of convergence, many points of interest or concerns from Pakistan and as well as from the US as well. But sir, Ambassador Saab, what are the points of convergence? Are we going to look at the relationship through the prism of Afghanistan peace process, or can we look at various different aspects of it?
Thank you. I think Afghanistan is the core issue right now between Pakistan and the United States. And it has been made quite obvious if you look at the configuration of our delegation also. And then American commentators as well as their officials have been talking about the core issue for them for this particular visit. And Afghanistan, there has been a progress. And they have acknowledged Pakistan's role in facilitating these talks, especially convincing the Taliban to come to the negotiating table. So this is, you can say, a point of convergence. This is not the point of divergence.
It is the only point of convergence?
No, this is the core point of convergence because it had created bad blood in the past few months, which is why President Trump had that famous tweet last year on
the first tweet of last year, actually.
Yes, the first tweet of, unfortunately. But that was adequately responded by the Prime Minister. Issues are, they also know that what blunders they have committed in Afghanistan. And we also had tried to convince them that military is not the only solution. There are other solutions. The other points of convergence could be on terrorism issue. Because we have suffered due to terrorism, and we have a long list of our grievances which need to be addressed. And that also includes intervention in our Balochistan, then support to TTP by India.
Yeah, the Balochistan bit was partly addressed by the banning of BLA.
Yes, so that was a strong signal from the United States that they are ready to talk, and so that's why they declared BLA as a terrorist organization.
And we are going to talk about that a bit further later in the program. Let me bring in Raza Rumi sir. Raza Rumi sir, your take on the entire thing. The question that arises in my head is that we keep on looking at that relationship through the prism of Afghanistan. We are talking about a country like Pakistan, which has a population of over 200 million. It has many things to offer. And of course, the US and Pakistan have been very close allies in the past. There might be some transactional denial on both sides, but there's a lot to offer. Then why do we continue to focus only through one prism?
Farooq, thank you for having me here, and good to be back after a long time. I think you're absolutely right that the security prism and the lens has defined the bilateral relationship for too long. And partly it has to do with America's own Afghanistan misadventure, which obviously is not going anywhere now.
I'll just have to interject here just to remind viewers that at this moment they can see the footage of the start of the interaction. I think at this moment they are talking to the media, but this is the beginning of the interaction, after which they will proceed for formal talks, and we will continue to update you. And at this moment you can see the visuals where the Prime Minister of Pakistan just arrived and now they're sitting together. There must have been the handshake as well that usually takes place. But let me come back to the studio, back to you, Raza Rumi sir.
Yeah, and so I think that security lens unfortunately became the dominant way of the bilateral engagement, overshadowing every other issue of trade, of cooperation, of people-to-people contact, etc. And so we are in this situation where unfortunately, at least for the last 5-6 years, this bad blood has been increasing. But this visit is a bit of a game changer because the Americans are very keen to exit from Afghanistan,
Right.
and Pakistan is also keen that Afghanistan finally attains some measure of peace, and that peace process is not possible without the exit of the foreign forces, as is the demand by the Taliban and other groups. And so now that we are close to that particular point, I think it is in the interest of both the countries want a stable and a peaceful Afghanistan. The Americans don't want Afghanistan to become another Iraq. And Pakistan obviously is going to be directly affected by whatever happens there.
Okay.
And so there's a great convergence of mutual both security interests, and I think that's why this meeting is of great significance. I think the second important thing for Pakistan at this stage is the economic argument, as was mentioned by Fakhar Imam Saab, that after the IMF deal and its linkage with FATF, etc., we cannot take a risk at this stage, given the precarious nature of the economy.
Right.
And we know that the Americans and the Indians have been influencing the FATF proceedings quite a bit to our detriment. Yeah. And hopefully with this bridge building, this better trust between the two countries, we may overcome that. And Pakistan has taken very concrete steps in the past few months about some of the conditions that FATF
I'm glad that
needs.
you actually highlighted another very important aspect, that is India's perspective. Somehow India's perspective, Fakhar Imam Sahab, also keeps on influencing the Western narrative. I don't know where were we when India's narrative became that successful in America in past 10-15 years. But right now I'm seeing op-ed pieces after op-ed pieces written by people of Indian origin, especially framing Pakistan as the formidable bad guys, and that becomes a problem. Do you think that Pakistan can actually build a relationship with the US in spite of India's influence?
Well, I think we have to go back to the year 2005 when the United States negotiated the
Nuclear
agreement. And it's an agreement which was negotiated by Talbot and his counterpart, in Jaswant Singh, over several years. And then it passed both the Lok Sabha with difficulty and the US Congress with ease. And from that day, I think there was a paradigm shift in the relationship of these two countries, because after the breakup of the Soviet Union, India had gained such, but now this was formalized and with an open-ended kind of an arrangement, which perhaps the United States has not had with any other country. And we were non-NATO allies, but only on, in my opinion, on one track, the security element.
Okay.
And now I think the Indians, which have been very adroitly, from their perspective, moving to such an extent, and because of the influence of the Indian diaspora, they've had two governors of Indian origin there. They've even had a permanent representative of the United States at the UN,
Right.
and so many other people placed in the powerful universities of the United States, as well as in the media, as you have quite rightly said. We have a much more of an uphill task. We have a large diaspora, but perhaps not as politically influential as the United States, as the Indians are in the United States. And I think we need to, our issue is our own governance and our own economy. I think we need to
And our own unity as well.
get our own house really in order. I think the start has been made because we have been in the last 10 to 15 years not doing all that well economically when we compare ourselves with our neighbor. And I think we need to realize that, and I think that the kind of space that we may have, because India's atrocities of the kind they're making in Indian-held Kashmir are really of the worst possible kind.
Right. Let me, sir, just interject you here. Let me bring in Babar Trimzi, founding member of PTI, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf USA, who has joined us on telephone. Thank you very much, Trimzi sir, for joining us. Sir, your take on the importance of this meeting.
Thank you very much for having me. Yes, I was listening to the other person who was on. Actually, I just joined in, so I really don't know. But I heard his last comments, which were quite formidable. But in this new relationship, in this new meeting, there is only one thing tangibly we are looking towards is newly defined bilateral relationships in each and every field which Chairman Imran Khan had been professing and has been emphasizing since long, in which he had been saying that Pakistan want to be a real friend, but not a master-slave relationship. Yes, we had been a new non-NATO ally, but the benefits we got, we had more damages rather than getting any benefits. But what I see, and I actually see because the 25,000 people gathering yesterday in Capital Arena, I was the eyewitness of that history. That has put more, actually, I won't say pressure, but that has pressed the White House administration that there will be a talk, and that will be a very lengthy, hefty talk for a newly defined relationship.
Right. And what do you think will be the contours of that redefined foreign policy or relationship between the two countries, sir?
Absolutely, I believe the South. So first of all, it's about Afghanistan, and then I'm 100% sure India is a vital player. Pakistan is the most pivotal player in the arena. So South Asia stability in the region, and then Middle East, and I'm sure that Iran will also be the topic of the discussion. And the healthiest thing which is happening is that Army General Qamar Javed Bajwa, he's also visiting, and he's going to Pentagon too. It means that we are going to have talks on each and every realm, on defense, on trade, on technology, and financial aspects too. But the main area will remain Afghanistan and South Asia, and I'm sure that Prime Minister Imran Khan, he would definitely discuss this Kashmir issue, because that is a bone of contention and apple of discord, which keep bothering the both sides.
Absolutely, sir. Dabir Tirmzi is our founding member, PTI USA. Thank you very much for talking to us. Let us come back to the studio. Let me now go back to Ambassador Asif Durrani. Sir, right now we are talking about various other aspects, but we have one crisis that is brewing next door. Yeah, and I'm not talking about Afghanistan, I'm talking about Iran. And Dabir Tirmzi Saab also actually mentioned it. Do you think it is going to play an important role in discussions as well?
Well, it's really a very sensitive issue, and it is going to impact us as well. So Iran-US standoff in the region, and especially when it comes to the nuclear issue. And here I think United States is at fault, and they have withdrew from the agreement, JCPOA.
Yeah.
And the world opinion is also, I think they are in support of Iran's contention. And the American sanctions against Iran, those are unjustified. Because, and then more dangerously, I must say, that the validity of or credibility of any international agreement has been put to jeopardy.
All right.
Because then tomorrow, if you want to enter any international agreement and one party withdraws, especially the powerful party.
Right. No, I understand the overall direction of the agreement, but I was talking about more contingent issues
This
like
is what,
the tension in Straits of Hormuz.
So again, it impacts.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that a US-Iran standoff, it can, a small spark can become a big explosion
Right.
in
And
the
Pakistan will feature in, I mean, this can
Definitely,
feature
we
in
are the neighbor of Iran,
Yeah.
and we are almost 100% oil supplies come through from the region.
Right.
We don't have other diversified resources of oil.
Okay, I have to ask you
And also
another
gas.
question regarding the personal chemistry of the two leaders as well. Both are supposed to be very charismatic, and they are not the kind of people who mince words. So how do you think it is going to go?
I think they are matter-of-fact people, and I think they it should play well on both sides. Yeah, this is what I think.
Okay, Raza Rumi sir, what do you think of this?
The chemistry?
Yeah, the possible chemistry.
No, I think we are watching the chemistry, and it seems to be just fine. I think while they both are known to be very, straightforward and no
Straight
holds
shooters.
barred.
Yeah, straight shooters.
Straight shooters, as they say. I think the occasion demands, and I'm sure both sides have been briefed very well, because it's a very important meeting. It's a meeting that involves very critical issues, both for both the countries, especially, as I mentioned, Pakistan, needs that kind of international support at the moment for both an economic bailout, for some relief on FATF, and also I think what is important is that this is such a long-standing historic relationship that it just can't wither away like that. I've always argued that, and then let's not forget that we have a very big diaspora in America.
Yeah.
Last
We
night
saw it,
we saw, you saw some glimpse of that. I mean, it's just 20, 30,000 people. But I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of people, and they are highly qualified professionals. Unlike Europe and Gulf states, the Pakistani diaspora in America is a very vital member of American life and American community, like thousands of doctors, engineers, people on Wall Street, academics, etc. And there's a very strong push there as well for that this relationship must not get out of hand due to short-term security concerns.
Yeah.
And finally, I think what is also important is that let us not forget that America is perhaps the second largest destination for Pakistani exports.
Yeah.
And there's an immense potential to expand that. We have been asking for full access.
Yeah.
And given the state of our economy, we need more markets. We need to boost our exports, get more foreign exchange. So this is of a very vital,
Yeah, but perhaps
significance.
trade might not be one thing that might be that successful right now.
Yeah, right.
Given the outlook of.
But if we have better trust, if we have a better relationship, and there's follow-on diplomatic, economic engagement, certainly.
And I want you to actually frame the problem as well, because both the countries have actually worked together very closely. Where we fought, Cold War together.
Yes.
We have again fought terrorism together. But it seems that while we kept on cooperating, somehow there were disagreements or there was a regression in the relationship, where it seems that we have stopped even talking to each other. I mean, look at this. Donald Trump has been president of US for 3 years. And now it is for the first time that a Prime Minister of Pakistan is formally, physically meeting him.
Yes.
So what exactly is the problem?
So the problem was a huge trust deficit and the fact that the two countries had a different outlook on Afghanistan, basically
Only
on
Afghanistan.
the regional power balance. I mean, you know, the US has entered into an alliance with India. Now that's a reality, that's a statement of fact, and it's going to continue because of India's market size, the opportunities that American investors and companies see in India. So our historic relationship was that we always thought that the relationship and the alliance with the US was a bulwark against Indian aggression or the threat, insecurity we felt. But now that has changed, and now we have to reconfigure the relationship in the 21st century, where there is substantive cooperation in both economic terms, and also the US would not like to completely disengage from this region.
Right.
So it needs Pakistan's support.
Right. That is true, sir. But Fakhr Imam Sahab, once again, regarding this relationship, what really stands out is that when the US, interacts with China, it works with China, and yet it is not at the cost of Taiwan, for that matter, or Japan, or other, Asian partners. Why is it that when we think, or we have convinced somehow, that if it is going to work with India, it is going to be at our cost?
I think if you look back at international relations in the last few decades, first the Cold War, there were two major strategic powers, the United States and the Soviet Union, and after 1991, when the Soviet Union broke up, it became more or less of a unilateral kind of a situation where the United States emerged as the power. Now I think Beijing has emerged as the second big economic power. And how has it emerged? Like Japan emerged from 45 to 1990, where most of their exports were going to North America and Europe, because they were the markets where they could do. And they built their economy on that, as has China. For the last 40 years, its main market has again been the United States. So the economic factor has been the key.
Okay.
We in Pakistan have missed the bus. We've missed the bus on the Industrial Revolution, we missed the bus on the Agrarian Revolution, on the services, and also on the high tech.
Okay.
And our neighbor, although we are just at $20 billion, they have gone over $300 billion in export. And of that, about 144 billion is high tech export.
Okay.
So that is the kind of field we have to be in, because nobody looks at anything in a charitable way.
Okay.
The reality of politics and the reality of interstate relations is such that these are things. So we have to play it out in a way. I'm glad that we have got better relations now with Moscow than we used to in the past.
Okay.
We have excellent relations because of our relations with China is doing extraordinarily well. But we need to also, but we first have to internally, economically put our house in an area where we have services to export and we have other things which other markets will require. So we have to look at it in a different dimension today.
I totally get when you say that we have to fix our economy so that we are not dependent on other countries, and then we can build a more sovereign relationship. That makes sense. But Ambassador Saab, regarding this relationship, one sees an incredible level of denial on both sides. I mean, both countries have actually spent a lot of time together and strategically. But whenever you talk about, this relationship, on both sides we are told, countries have national interest, they can diverge, they can converge, of course they do. But, there are pretty precious few countries that have done as much for the US after perhaps Israel, as Pakistan has. And there are precious few countries that have done as much for Pakistan as the US has, perhaps after China. So why this much denial on both sides?
I would rather put this question in a different way. I would rather say that why would we always put our eggs into the American basket? Why would we would always be looking for the United States to be our ally?
Because it is our default setting?
The question is that we live in a region where our geography itself is a big asset for Pakistan. And what we have to do is to formulate a strong regional policy, stable regional policy, which strongly bases on its own, which is within, in peace within and without in the neighborhood. And that's very important because once we have improved relationship in our neighborhood, then we don't need allies far afield. This is my personal view.
And
this is now paying dividends.
Ambassador sir, can we afford to toss away any relationship
We don't
that
have
we
to
have
toss
spent
away.
so much time?
We have to be realistic rather than pinning all hopes into the American.
I'm merely saying that there has to be an admission of how much both countries have done for each other, right?
The question
It
is,
is basic
again,
history,
that's why-
101.
but that has been transactional. They have done it, it's not because of some ideological reasons. No, not at all.
Okay.
Yes, and those were, opportunistic reasons, whether it was in Pakistan when we had dictatorships, and our dictators were pariah outside the world, and then here came the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and our dictators became heroes.
Right.
They became, darlings. Same happened after 9/11. So,
On a basic human level, if you look at the micro level, everything is transactional in the world.
Well,
but you still manage
that's
to
the
actually
reality.
build relationships.
we have to talk about realities. So
Yeah,
Americans,
but-
their reality was that Pakistan is needed, and we were ready.
Right.
The question is, we did not bargain
Okay.
on both occasions, whether it is during Soviet invasion of Afghanistan or after the 9/11.
Okay.
Now-
That actually takes me to a very interesting question. How relevant is words like relationship and modality in the international system, Raza Sahab?
I think these are important and nice, well-meaning words, but they don't really matter that much.
Okay.
Because states are, designed to protect and further their national interests, their own, whether it's the political, economic, security, strategic interests. And we have seen in our, what we are talking about, the US-Pakistan bilateral relationship, it has been driven by the imperatives of both the states. We were a new and a young country in 1947, and later on we wanted protection against a bigger neighbor, so we went into the American camp. That was our requirement. The Americans wanted us, given our location for Cold War.
I'm glad that you're giving me the realist perspective,
Yes,
but
yes.
there is also an idealist perspective.
The
right?
idealist perspective is very
Theories
good.
of IR
It's in
are not
textbooks.
finalized right now.
So idealist perspectives have their place, and they have.
And here comes another concern. Ambassador Sahab was talking about geography, right? Our geography must be important, and we keep on highlighting that aspect. But so is demography. Our people are important, 200 million people, and they, culturally speaking, are they more leaning towards capitalist democracy or socialism?
Well, that Fakhr Saab will tell you better, because he has
he
has a better experience of getting votes every 5 years. But the thing is that I think it is. Ours is a very interesting country. It's a very, first of all, it's 210 million people, but it's a very diverse set of people. There are people who believe in this kind of democracy. There are people who like dictatorship. There are
But
people,
essentially good people?
of course,
essentially hardworking
but
people?
Essentially, all human beings are
No,
good
come on.
and
No,
hardworking
let me
people.
narrow it
Okay.
down. Essentially hardworking people?
Essentially hardworking people, but lacking in opportunities.
Similar to, when it comes to work ethics, similar to the US people?
I think by and large,
So
yes.
there is something, some common denominator here.
No, there are many common denominators. As I mentioned to you earlier, even looking at the diaspora linkages, there are so many commonalities and connections that we have. But I think we also need to keep in mind that, you know, international relations are also asymmetric. Here is a big power, and we are a smaller country. Whether, you know, we have a big population, we are nuclear armed, etc.
Why do we keep on telling ourselves that we are a small country?
No, I think we have to be
I mean,
realistic.
so is Japan. Physically, so is Japan.
But the
It was
economy-
conquered by the Americans, right? But they don't tell themselves that
Farooq,
they're
I think what we really have to underline, what we really have to pin here, is that this in this day and age, it is the economic strength of countries that matters. Singapore is perhaps a smaller country than Islamabad.
right.
That was my point.
It is precisely your point, sir.
बिल्कुल. And the thing is that, you know, our economic growth, our economic strength, skilled labor force, as you know, our industrial manufacturing output, our knowledge-based output, that is what is going to take us through in this century.
Right.
Look at Singapore, Taiwan, small countries, Thailand, you know, and they have, or Malaysia for that matter, much smaller countries.
That is true. There is a reason why I keep on bringing it back to US-Pakistan, because Pakistani Prime Minister is just meeting
Yes,
the
so-
US President, not Finance Minister of Pakistan.
So what I'm saying is, when he meets this, and if a door opens for Pakistan's economic stabilization, a road to recovery that we badly need in the next 1-2 years, then it's a very good omen for Pakistan.
Right. Fakhar Imam Sahab, let us see this point, the merit of this point, that we are, or the world might be actually heading towards a new Cold War, some kind of confrontation between the US and China. And strangely for us, these are two, strongest relationships or most important relations we had. So is it time already when we are going to be asked to choose or pick a side? Or because of Donald Trump, maybe there's a possibility that we don't actually head in that direction at all?
Well, I think we should maintain a very close and pragmatic relationship that we have evolved with China. And our objectives, goals and aims have overlapped, and it's to benefit of both. This $46 billion CPEC, it may go up higher. But I think one element that I said at the very start was that how did China progress so fast? It was human resource development. And they were not afraid to ask straight away. We've had 3 major United States interventions in our region: the Cold War, Soviet invasion, and then 9/11. We never demanded anything. We have not built a single global level institution of learning. We should have demanded it right at the start when we negotiated. Therefore, our people would have had that opportunity, the challenges. We have nearly over 130 million people below the average of 35.
Right.
What is the knowledge base? How much of them can go in? This is why I said from our neighbors, $144 billion of human knowledge that they are transmitting. It's nothing to do with anything else other than the training and the knowledge they have gained. Now this is an area, even today, Pakistan needs to enter that space.
Right.
Whether it's through China, the United States, Russia, anybody Japan.
Or all?
Or all, yes. This is the keystone.
And what are the odds today when the Prime Minister of Pakistan is talking to the US President, this issue of opening avenues for learning also feature
I
on the
think
list?
I'm not privy to the exact issue, what is on the agenda, but this is how I would look at it. If a Deng Xiaoping, Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, these were men who could see things 10 years down the road, 20, and they are standing tall today in the eyes of the world, and in a very short period, 30, 40 years. You don't have to look at 200 years of industrial revolution that Britain undertook in 1760 to 1789, or the Meiji restoration of Japan of the 1860s. Now, they have just done it in 2 or 3 decades. Pakistan can do it in 1 decade. We have the ability, the potential, but we have not just put our things together in a manner where we get the meritocracy of faculties in our educational system.
And Prime Minister actually spoke about merit yesterday when he was talking to the diaspora, Pakistani Americans. But let me ask you, Ambassador Saab, regarding this knowledge economy. I remember during the previous government's time, there was a talk of a knowledge corridor with the US. I don't know what became of it. But do you think it is going to be discussed today?
I think the best thing would be that if the Prime Minister can emphasize on revival of strategic dialogue between Pakistan and the US, under which then you have cooperation in scientific field, in education, in agriculture, in defense and security.
Right.
So strategic dialogue has to be revived because it is in the cold storage for the past 5-6 years. So that is very important. And then we should also, the question is, again, Pakistan has to invest in education. We have to raise the allocation for our people in order to educate them. And then we have to facilitate the people to enter into businesses which are knowledge-based.
Right. For investment to take place, you have to have money. And that is the biggest
No,
concern.
for education is probably the least capital intensive
Yeah, but
area.
still, you need money to
Yes.
build state-of-the-art.
Because instead of building a factory or something, you can educate at least 100
Right.
youth in that field.
Right.
So, and they can pay back to you 1,000 times.
Okay. Raza Sahab, regarding education, of course, you can tell us what can be done right now and what do you expect from this meeting. But since we are also talking about the visit, overall visit, the important aspect is that there's going to be an interaction, and there has been interaction with the business community in the US too. And of course, we keep on talking about trade or trade opportunities. But one aspect that is important for a country that might be, weighing its wings to take off is FDI. Do you think that we can expect some FDI to come out of this visit?
I think definitely, as I mentioned, if once this revival of relationship takes place, because it had virtually unfortunately come to the zero level in the past, at least in the past two years or so. And now it is being revived, and we
Right.
certainly can have subsequent discussions.
I'll have to stop you there. I just come back to you in a second. I'm told that Lieutenant General retired Khalid Naeem Lodhi has joined us on telephone, former Defense Minister. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Sir, we are talking about the expectations from today's meeting between Prime Minister Imran Khan and President Donald Trump. What are your expectations, sir?
Right. I think it has started on a very positive note. And we have all noticed that both the countries have made special efforts to create a, leveling the field before this meeting took place. There are a number of steps which Americans took, such as, BLA thing and many other things also. And we also took certain steps, and we are all aware of it. So I think a good groundwork was made as far as this thing is concerned. And I'm also sure that whenever such meetings take place, the outcome is not contingent on whatever they'll be talking in these 45 minutes. Actually, a lot of spade work must have gone before this, and many things would have been ironed out, and some statements already prepared or something. So the positivity which I saw once Donald Trump was talking, and the counter confidence which I saw in Prime Minister Imran Khan's body language, to me it seems that some very positive outcome is likely, and this will pave the way and open new vistas for Pakistan and also for USA, because they also need us. The only thing is, once we say that we have to reset the relations, or we have to again start this relationship again, we must remember the history, that what were the events or what were the factors which actually brought any bitterness in these relations. We must now avoid them. America should also avoid those. And I think both countries must have learned lessons. So resetting is good, but let us also hope that resetting is not on the old software. A new software must have been introduced where mutual respect and mutual interest, they became the guiding factor as far as future relationships are concerned.
Right.
So I'm
General
hoping
sir,
for a very positive outcome.
Right. General Sahib, you spoke about very positive outcome. Now the question is, how do you characterize that? Is it going to be regarding Afghanistan alone, or can we see the revival of strategic dialogue between the two countries?
I think, one thing we should be clear that at the moment, after this reset, immediately it will not be possible for both the countries to go for such deep strategic relations which we had earlier. I'm talking about 20 years back or before that, because they have selected India as the regional main partner, and we have developed very strong and strategic relationship with China, and they say that they are in competition with China. So it would be difficult, I would say, that to expect some long-term strategic relationship straight away. But I think the way will be paid for that. Once I say positive outcome, there are certain mutual interests which are overlapping, such as peace in Afghanistan. Although I keep on saying that they want to exit safely from Afghanistan, for which Pakistan is also ready to help them.
Right.
But as far as the peace in Afghanistan is concerned, there's a small variation in the understanding. They want to leave their influence in Pakistan and in the region, and that would be the main sticking point between the two sides. That what do they want to leave here, and what safeguards they want from Pakistan as far as that thing concerned, and what will be the role of Taliban in agreeing to that or not. Now, because China is involved, Russia is involved, Pakistan and America are involved, now this quadrilateral is a very balanced group. And that is why I think that Afghan Taliban will also show some understanding. And that is why I say that a positive outcome is expected.
Right. General Sahib, thank you very much for that
you.
optimistic comment. Thank you very much for your input. I come back to you, Raza Rumi Sahib, but we'll have to change the format because we are running short of time. So I'll request you to actually start wrapping up your conclusions.
So I'm just saying that this is a great door opener. It is a great reset that is we are witnessing. I hope it works out. And it will lead to further areas of collaboration. I think we should not think of our international relations as a zero-sum game. We can be. China is a long-standing ally of ours.
It can be a positive sum, right?
Exactly.
It can be positive sum, and we should actually emphasize that point. Fakhr Imam Sahib, your conclusion very quickly, sir.
I think it's the start of a restructured relationship. We should look at it constructively, and I'm sure some positive elements will emerge out of it.
Right. Durrani sir, your
We
take?
should have a good relationship with all major powers.
Yeah, with a focus,
including the
emphasis
United States.
You're right, sir. On that positive note, I have to thank all three guests in the studio. Syed Fakhr Imam Sahib, thank you very much, sir, for your time. Ambassador Asif Durrani, thank you very much for your valuable input as well. Raza Rumi Sahib, it is always a great pleasure having you in the studio, in the program. But viewers, you have listened to our participants. This discussion, of course, has to continue, and we still have to wait and see what becomes, what is going to be the outcome of the entire interaction between the two countries at the apex level. But when you talk about the media, private media is actually quoting AFP right now. And one such report says that Donald Trump has actually offered to mediate between India and Pakistan on the issue of Kashmir. I don't know whether this has happened or not. We still have to wait and verify this. But the fact is that if he can do that, and if both sides agree, and there is some kind of negotiated settlement, it is short going to win him a Nobel Peace Prize. Regarding, actually, I'm just being told that it is confirmed that this offer has been made already. The other aspect is that Pakistan's contribution in Afghanistan was also praised during the interaction. The question right now is, how do we see this relationship and how do we take it forward? I think there are many strong points that can be emphasized, and this relationship can be rebuilt in spite of many negative atmospherics, and by that you understand what I mean. But at this moment it seems that there is a scope for better relationship. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.